The Galactic Council chamber fell into absolute silence when Ambassador Vex-4 raised his primary appendage, the crystalline structure of his form flickering with what could only be described as fear. For 3,000 cycles, he had served as the Council's chief xenobiologist, cataloging every known species across 47 galaxies, documenting their evolutionary paths, their survival mechanisms, their capacity for violence. He had walked the methane swamps of Krylo, where predators dissolved prey from the inside out. He had observed the hive massacres of Zenthra Prime, where entire colonies consumed themselves in ritualistic fury. He had even survived an expedition to the nightmare world of Varkesh, where the very atmosphere was weaponized by its inhabitants. But nothing, absolutely nothing in his long career had prepared him for what he discovered on the small blue world humans called Earth. The holographic display materialized above the council floor, showing a seemingly peaceful planet, swirled with white clouds and vast oceans, its continents green and brown and inviting. The assembled delegates, representing over 200 spacefaring civilizations, leaned forward with curiosity. Most had heard whispers about the humans, the newest species to achieve faster-than-light travel, the ones who had burst onto the galactic stage with an enthusiasm that bordered on reckless. They seemed harmless enough, these bipedal creatures with their soft skin and their tendency to smile at everything. The Galactic Council had even welcomed them, granted them provisional membership, and assigned Vex-4 to conduct the standard planetary assessment. It was supposed to be routine. Vex-4's voice resonated through the translation matrix, carrying undertones that sent ripples of unease through the chamber. Esteemed council members, I stand before you today not to present a standard assessment, but to issue a classification that has been invoked only twice in galactic history. I hereby designate the planet Earth as a Class Omega Death World, the most dangerous planetary environment ever encountered by advanced civilization. The chamber erupted. Delegates from peaceful trade worlds gasped in their various respiratory methods. The warrior clans of the Dravik sector, who prided themselves on their brutal homeworld selection trials, roared with laughter. How could this garden world, this paradise of water and gentle gravity, possibly compare to their crucibles of survival? But Vex-4 was not finished, and his next words cut through the chaos like a blade through flesh. The danger of Earth is not in its environment alone, though I assure you, the planet's ecosystem is a masterwork of evolutionary horror that would break most of our species within hours. The true danger, the reason I stand before you now recommending immediate quarantine protocols and military observation, is what this planet creates. What it forces into existence through relentless, merciless, beautiful brutality. He manipulated the holographic controls, and the image shifted. No longer did they see the peaceful blue marble from space. Now they witnessed Earth's surface, its reality, the crucible that had forged humanity. Massive reptilian predators with teeth like swords. Microorganisms that could end civilizations. Weather systems that spawned rotating columns of destruction. Tectonic plates that shattered continents. Ice ages and infernos, floods and droughts, extinction events that wiped the slate clean again and again and again. And through it all, improbably, impossibly, life not only survived but flourished. The counselor from Thesha Prime, a world of carefully controlled environments and perfectly balanced ecosystems, spoke with trembling vocal cords. Ambassador Vex-4, forgive my confusion, but many worlds have harsh conditions. The Dravik's homeworld has gravity 3 times that of Earth. The Silicate Collective evolved in volcanic vents. What makes this planet uniquely dangerous? Vex-4's form pulsed with something the translation matrix struggled to interpret, settling finally on profound respect mixed with existential dread. He had anticipated this question, had spent sleepless cycles preparing for this moment, knowing that mere words could never capture the truth he had witnessed. But he had to try. Honored counselor, you misunderstand the nature of the threat. Yes, your worlds are harsh. Yes, they shaped strong species. But Earth? Earth is not merely harsh. It is actively, creatively, endlessly hostile to life in ways that defy probability. Let me provide context. The hologram shifted again, displaying comparative data that made several delegates check their translation devices, certain they were malfunctioning. On Earth, over 99% of all species that have ever existed are extinct. Not from war, not from resource depletion, but from the planet itself constantly, repeatedly, almost playfully wiping the board clean. 5 major extinction events, dozens of minor ones, and life returns every single time, more diverse, more adaptable, more determined than before. Earth doesn't just challenge life. It wages war against it. And somehow, life keeps winning. The warrior delegates of Dravix had stopped laughing. Their military commanders were running calculations, cross-referencing the data with their own evolutionary histories. One stood, mandibles clicking in what their species used to signal alarm. Ambassador, if what you say is true, if this planet has repeatedly sterilized itself, how did humans develop civilization? How did they achieve spaceflight? Surely such constant catastrophe would prevent technological advancement. Vex Thor's response was a single word, delivered with the weight of prophecy. Adaptation. The hologram now displayed the human evolutionary timeline, and the chamber fell into stunned silence as they watched the impossible unfold. Humans had not evolved in paradise. They had not developed intelligence and safety. Their earliest ancestors had been prey animals, hunted by creatures that would give the Dravix warriors nightmares. But they survived. They used tools. They discovered fire. They turned Earth's own weapons against its predators. When the planet grew cold and ice covered half the continents, humans wrapped themselves in the skins of their kills and walked into the frozen hell, thriving where they should have perished. When resources grew scarce, they didn't fight to extinction over scraps. They planted seeds, domesticated animals, bent the very ecosystem to their will. But here is what you must understand, Vex Thor continued, his voice carrying the weight of revelation. What makes Earth truly dangerous is not that it created survivors. Many worlds do that. Earth created innovators, problem solvers. A species that looks at an impossible situation and asks not can we survive this, but how can we turn this to our advantage? They learned to fear the ocean, so they built boats. They feared the sky, so they created flying machines. They feared death itself, so they developed medicine that would seem like magic to their ancestors. Every single challenge Earth threw at them, every extinction event, every predator, every disease, every natural disaster, they met with the same response: adapt, overcome, prevail. A delegate from the Harmony Collective, a species that had achieved spaceflight through millennia of peaceful cooperation and careful resource management, raised a concern that echoed through many minds in the chamber. Ambassador Vex Thor, what you describe sounds admirable, even inspiring. Why then do you recommend quarantine? Why classify them as dangerous? The ambassador's form dimmed, and when he spoke again, his words carried the weight of terrible understanding. Because, esteemed counselor, there is a dark side to endless adaptation, to being forged in such relentless fire. Let me tell you what I witnessed during my assessment of human civilization. The hologram shifted to display human history, and the assembled council watched in growing horror as the narrative unfolded. Humans had not only survived Earth's challenges. They had internalized them, weaponized them, turned their adaptive capabilities inward upon themselves. The same species that had cooperated to build civilizations had also waged war with a creativity and determination that defied comprehension. They had not simply fought over resources. They had fought over ideas, over beliefs, over concepts as intangible as honor and pride. They had developed weapons of such devastating power that they could replicate the very extinction events their planet had inflicted upon them. And they had used them. Not once in desperate survival, but repeatedly, systematically, against their own kind. "Observe," Vexthor commanded, and the hologram displayed what humans called their world wars, conflicts so vast and terrible that they consumed entire continents, killed millions, and reshaped their civilization. The Council watched as humans developed industrial killing methods, as they turned their genius for problem-solving toward the problem of how to most efficiently destroy each other. They watched as humans split the atom itself, harnessing the fundamental forces of the universe, not for exploration or enlightenment, but for weapons that could end their own world in fire. And then, most remarkably, most terrifyingly, they watched as humans looked at these weapons, recognized the apocalypse they had created, and chose not to use them. Chose instead to live under the constant threat of self-annihilation rather than surrender the capability. Several delegates had already left the chamber, unable to process what they were witnessing. The Harmony Collective representative was openly weeping through their sensory organs. But Vexthor pressed on, knowing they needed to understand the full scope of what they faced. "This is what Earth creates, honored Council. This is the terrible beauty of that world. Humans are capable of unspeakable violence, yes, but they are also capable of choosing peace when violence would be easier. They are capable of cooperation that spans their entire planet, but also of conflicts that threaten to tear it apart. They are contradictions made flesh, paradoxes walking on two legs, the product of a world that taught them one simple lesson: there is no challenge that cannot be overcome, no problem that cannot be solved, no obstacle that cannot be conquered." And they believed it. They internalized it. It became the core of their being. The Dravik's military commander spoke, voice filled with grudging respect. "They sound like worthy adversaries, Ambassador. Perhaps we should recruit them, strengthen the Council's military forces." Vexthor's response was immediate and emphatic. "You misunderstand, Commander. They would not be worthy adversaries. They would be inevitable victors. Let me show you why." The hologram now displayed something that made even the most seasoned warriors in the chamber shift uncomfortably. Vexthor had compiled a comparison of human endurance capabilities against every known spacefaring species, and the results were staggering. "Humans are persistent hunters," he explained, his voice carrying notes of awe that the translation matrix rendered as almost religious reverence. "On Earth, before they developed advanced tools, before they mastered fire, they hunted prey not by being stronger or faster, but by simply refusing to stop. They would track an animal for days, weeks if necessary, following it relentlessly until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. Then, only then, would they claim their kill. This is not instinct. This is not survival mechanism in the traditional sense. This is psychological warfare elevated to evolutionary strategy." The implications began to dawn on the council members. The Harmony Collective representative, recovered from their emotional distress, asked the question that was forming in everyone's consciousness. "Ambassador, are you suggesting that humans would apply the same strategy to galactic conflict?" Vexthor's response was delivered with absolute certainty. "I am not suggesting, Counselor. I am warning. I spent months embedded with human military forces as part of my assessment. I reviewed their strategic doctrines, their war histories, their tactical philosophies. Every single human military tradition, from every culture on that planet, shares one common thread: they do not accept defeat. Not ever. They have words for tactical retreat, for strategic withdrawal, but the concept of permanent surrender is alien to them. They will fight losing battles knowing they cannot win, buying time for others to prepare. They will sacrifice everything for abstract concepts like freedom and honor. They will endure conditions that would break our warriors, and they will do it while singing songs about it. The hologram shifted to display human achievements that seemed impossible given their relatively brief existence. The council watched as these creatures, barely out of their single-planet infancy, had already begun to terraform their moon, had sent probes beyond their solar system, had developed technologies that some council species had taken millennia to achieve. But more disturbing were the records Vex Thor had uncovered of human problem-solving under pressure. Medical advances born from battlefield necessity. Technologies developed because someone said it was impossible. Scientific breakthroughs achieved because humans looked at the universe's fundamental laws and asked, "But what if we tried anyway?" There is a human saying, Vex Thor continued, that perfectly encapsulates why Earth is the most dangerous planet in the galaxy. They say necessity is the mother of invention. But for humans, necessity is not occasional. It is constant. Their planet has made it constant. Every generation faces challenges that would end lesser species, and every generation finds solutions. They have learned to thrive on pressure, to excel in crisis, to transform obstacles into opportunities. And now they have turned their eyes to the stars, carrying with them every lesson Earth has taught them. The chamber was silent as the weight of Vex Thor's words settled over the assembled delegates. The Dravix commander finally spoke, voice uncharacteristically subdued. "What do you recommend, Ambassador?" Vex Thor's form solidified, his decision clear and unwavering. "We have three options before us. First, we could attempt to quarantine Earth, prevent humans from spreading into the galaxy. This would require military force, which would inevitably lead to conflict with a species that has never met a fight it wouldn't take. Second, we could attempt to destroy them, eliminate the threat before it grows. This would make us the monsters we claim to fear, and I am not convinced we would succeed. Third, and this is what I recommend, we could do something unprecedented in Council history. We could embrace them, guide them, help them channel their incredible capabilities toward constructive purposes rather than destructive ones." The proposal sent shockwaves through the council chamber, delegates erupting into heated debate in hundreds of languages and communication methods. The idea of not just accepting but actively partnering with a species from a death world classification went against every protocol, every safety measure, every careful policy the council had developed over millennia. But Vex Thor stood firm, waiting for the chaos to subside, knowing that what he was about to share would change their perspective forever. When silence finally returned, he continued with words that would echo through galactic history. "I know what I am asking seems insane. I know the protocols. I helped write them. But you must understand what I have witnessed. Yes, humans are dangerous. Yes, they are unpredictable. Yes, they carry within them the potential for tremendous violence. But I have also seen something else, something that gives me hope for what they could become with proper guidance." The hologram shifted one final time, and now it displayed moments that Vex Thor had captured during his assessment, moments that revealed the other side of humanity's nature. Humans risking their lives to save strangers. Scientists sharing discoveries freely across borders that had recently been at war. Artists creating beauty in the midst of destruction. Parents sacrificing everything for children who were not biologically their own. Strangers showing kindness for no reason except that kindness was needed. "Earth did not just create survivors," Vex Thor said, his voice filled with emotion that transcended species barriers. "It created a species capable of profound empathy, of choosing cooperation over competition, even when competition would be advantageous. They have a saying, 'We are all in this together,' and they mean it." Despite every lesson Earth taught them about being alone, about survival of the fittest, about the brutality of nature, they have consistently, repeatedly, almost defiantly chosen community. They have built societies that care for their weak, their elderly, their disabled. They have developed philosophies of universal dignity, of inherent worth regardless of capability. They have imagined, and are building, a future where no one is left behind. The Harmony Collective representative spoke, voice trembling with cautious optimism. Ambassador, you paint a picture of remarkable duality. But how can we be certain which nature will dominate? The violent or the compassionate? Vex Thor's response was immediate and profound. Because, counselor, that is the wrong question. It is not which nature will dominate. Both natures will always exist within them, constantly in tension, constantly in balance. The question is, which nature will we encourage? If we quarantine them, treat them as threats, respond to them with fear and hostility, we will create the very monster we fear. But if we welcome them, if we show them that the galaxy can be different from Earth, that cooperation can extend beyond a single species, beyond a single world, we might witness something unprecedented. We might see what happens when Earth's most dangerous creation chooses peace not from weakness, but from strength. The council chamber fell into contemplative silence as delegates processed the implications. They were being asked to take an enormous risk, to bet the stability of galactic civilization on the hope that humanity's better nature would prevail. But as Vex Thor presented his final argument, many found themselves swayed by the terrible logic of his position. Consider this, esteemed council members. Humanity will enter the galactic stage regardless of our decision today. We cannot stop them. We can only decide how they enter it. As enemies, born from our rejection and fear? Or as partners, guided by our wisdom and experience? Earth has already named them dangerous. The galaxy has already judged them by their origin. But perhaps it is time we remembered that every species in this chamber came from worlds that challenged them, that forged them through adversity. Humans simply come from a world that challenged them more than most. That does not make them evil. It makes them formidable. And formidable allies are far preferable to formidable enemies. The vote that followed was not unanimous. The Draviks abstained, unwilling to commit to either path. Several peaceful worlds voted against the proposal, their fear understandable and valid. But a majority, swayed by Vex Thor's passionate advocacy and the undeniable logic of his position, voted to extend a hand of friendship to humanity. Earth would remain classified as the most dangerous planet in the galaxy. That designation would stand as a warning, a reminder of what had created humanity and what they were capable of. But it would also stand as a testament to what could emerge from such danger. Not just survivors, not just warriors, but something more complex, more beautiful, more hopeful than the galaxy had ever seen. As the session concluded and delegates departed to their homeworlds to report this historic decision, Vex Thor remained alone in the empty chamber, gazing at the holographic image of Earth still floating above the council floor. That small blue world, so beautiful from a distance, so brutal up close, had created something extraordinary. Not because it was gentle, but because it was merciless. Not despite its dangers, but because of them. And now the galaxy would discover whether humanity's greatest strength was their capacity for violence or their capacity to choose peace. Vex Thor, who had spent his entire career studying species and their evolutionary pressures, found himself offering a prayer to whatever forces shaped the universe. Not for humanity's sake, but for the galaxy's. Because he understood with crystal clarity what many council members did not yet grasp. In welcoming humanity, they had not eliminated the danger Earth represented. They had simply chosen to stand beside it rather than against it. And in the millennia to come, the galaxy would learn whether that choice was wisdom or folly. The most dangerous planet in the galaxy had released its children to the stars, carrying with them every lesson learned from billions of years of beautiful, brutal survival. the universe would never be the same.